A moose walks out of the tree line. It is dragging a newborn calf that cannot stand. It is walking toward a farmhouse, not away from it, toward it. This happens more than you think. A deer leaves its fawn near a hiking trail. An elephant herd steers a sick calf toward a ranger station. A dolphin pushes its injured calf into shallow water where swimmers are. Wild animals, creatures that should fear you more than almost anything else on Earth, sometimes choose you, on purpose, in the worst moment of their lives. Why would an animal that spends its entire existence avoiding humans suddenly run toward one? The easy answer is desperation. But the real answer is far stranger. Because this behavior is not random panic. It is a calculated decision, and it reveals something about how animal minds work that most people never think about. It tells you what animals actually believe about you, and that belief is older and stranger and more specific than humans are dangerous. Start with the moose. Biologists who study large mammals have documented this pattern for decades. A mother in physical distress, injured, starving, or unable to produce milk will sometimes move toward a human structure instead of away from it. Not because she trusts you emotionally, because she is running a kind of calculation. Every wild mother is constantly weighing two threats against each other: predators and starvation. Wolves will kill her calf, so will a bad winter. She cannot fight off a wolf pack in her condition. But a farmhouse, a ranger station, a fence line, these things keep wolves away. Humans, in this narrow and specific sense, function as a predator-free zone. Not a friend, a wall. This is called predator shielding, and it shows up across dozens of species. Researchers studying elk in Yellowstone found that elk mothers give birth closer to roads and human trails than expected by chance. Not because roads are safer in general, because wolves avoid roads. The elk are not trusting the humans, they are using the humans as a repellent against something worse. Think about what that means for a second. The animal is not choosing you, it is choosing the absence of something else. You just happen to be standing in the safest available spot. But shielding does not explain everything. It does not explain the elephants. In parts of Africa and Asia, wildlife rangers have documented herds that approach ranger stations specifically when a calf is sick or injured, sometimes traveling for hours to do it. This is different. A ranger station is not simply predator-free. It is a place where, in the elephant's collective experience, humans have intervened before, removed a snare, treated a wound, guided a stuck calf out of mud. Elephants have extraordinary long-term memory, and they live in tight matriarchal groups that pass knowledge down for generations. A young elephant does not need to personally learn that rangers help. She only needs to watch her mother do it once. This is not instinct anymore. This is closer to learned trust, passed down like a family recipe. And that reframes the entire question. Some of these animals are not fleeing toward humans out of blind panic. They are returning to a location that, in their species' memory, has produced a good outcome before. Now, here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This same behavior does not exist everywhere. In regions with heavy poaching, elephants show the opposite pattern. They avoid roads, they avoid clearings, they move at night specifically to reduce contact with people. Researchers studying elephant populations in high poaching zones have found measurable shifts in movement timing across a single generation. That is not a coincidence. That is a population updating its model of you in real time. Which means the moose, the elk, the elephants, none of them are responding to humans as a fixed category. They are responding to a very specific, very local, constantly updated risk assessment. You are not a symbol to them. You are a data point. So what does this have to do with your own brain? More than you'd expect. Psychologists who study human decision-making under threat describe something called approach avoidance conflict. It is the same mechanism. When you are in danger, your brain does not simply ask, "Is this thing safe?" It asks a comparative question. Is this thing safer than what is currently happening to me? This is why people in emergencies sometimes make choices that look irrational from the outside. Running toward a stranger's car during a storm, knocking on the door of a house you've never entered, trusting a first responder you met 4 minutes ago with your life. None of these decisions come from certainty that the unfamiliar option is good. They come from a fast biological comparison, unfamiliar risk versus known catastrophe. Researcher Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying how humans make decisions under uncertainty, and one of his central findings was that people do not evaluate options in isolation. They evaluate them against a reference point. For the moose, the reference point is wolves. For a person in crisis, the reference point is whatever is actively hurting them right now. You have done a version of this yourself, even if the stakes were smaller. Approached a stranger for directions when you were lost in an unfamiliar city, trusted a teacher, a coach, a coworker you barely knew because the alternative in that moment felt worse. You were not evaluating that person's full character. You were comparing them to your current level of risk. The wild animal at your doorstep is not an anomaly. It is a mirror. It is running the exact same cost-benefit calculation that lives inside your own nervous system, just with a wolf instead of a bad situation and a farmhouse instead of a stranger's outstretched hand. There is one more layer to this, and it is the strangest one. Some biologists studying interspecies rescue behavior have proposed that certain animals may be capable of a limited form of what's called an appeal for aid, a behavioral signal that essentially says, "Something is wrong and I cannot fix it alone." This is not the same as human language. It does not require thought in the way you experience thought, but it is a signal, shaped by evolution, that increases the odds of the animal surviving a crisis it cannot survive by itself. A calf that cannot stand and stays hidden dies quietly. A calf that is dragged toward the one predictable safe zone in its mother's memory sometimes lives. Natural selection does not care whether the mechanism looks intelligent. It only cares whether it works. Which brings you back to the beginning. The moose was not confused. It was not lost. It made, in the fastest and most animal way possible, the same calculation you make when you dial an emergency number, or walk into a stranger's shop during a downpour, or trust a doctor you met 10 minutes ago with the thing you love most. It compared two dangers, and it chose the smaller one. Tonight, when you lock your door and feel that automatic pulse of safety, remember that the moose at the tree line is running the same software, different stakes, same ancient math. And somewhere out there, right now, something wild is deciding whether you are the safer option.